Episode 3, Fractures. My name is Iman, and I'm a black girl in Korea, a K-pop idol living the dream I once thought was impossible. This is the story of how I rose, how I fell in love with someone not entirely of this world, and how that love began to unravel. When I woke, he was watching me, Yeon's face, but Skerox's gaze. "Your world changes people," he said softly, "and maybe you're changing me too." But outside that room, the company was beginning to talk, not just about his comeback, about us, and about how Jiyeon didn't seem entirely Yeon anymore. Revive, Jiyeon's K-pop group boy band, was topping charts and getting even more recognition globally. As the leader, he had a lot on his schedule, so he left for his meetings while I stayed in bed, tracing last night in my mind like a song I never wanted to end. I'd never felt so utterly claimed, so undone, so rebuilt. I claimed time in my life last night, and not just once, but thrice. 3 times he'd taken me past my limits until my body shook and my breath caught like a broken melody. I found myself craving more, counting the hours until I could have him again, but something had shifted. I didn't realize it then. But last night, Skerox had given me more than pleasure. He'd given me a part of himself he wasn't supposed to lose. The alien inside him had bent too far toward human. And when an alien gives away too much of that essence, the body it inhabits starts to remember who it originally belonged to. After his meetings with company executives, Jaeon heads for practice. At the Revive rehearsal studio, that memory of last night came rushing back to him. "Hey, man." Jaeon's voice rang out, bright, teasing, almost boyish. He clapped one member on the shoulder, ruffled another's hair. There was no silver glint in his eyes, no unreadable stillness. Just warmth. "Hyung, you're acting like the old days?" One of the younger members laughed. Another tilted his head, wary, and stated, "It's weird. It's almost like you're two people." A third person, half-joking, said, "Or like something's inside you." They laughed, but the tension didn't leave, and then came the performance run-through. Normally, Skerox's movements bent the choreography to his will, sharp when it needed to be, fluid when it didn't, magnetic without effort. But that afternoon, Jiyeon missed a step, laughed it off, tried again. And for the first time since his miracle recovery, he looked human. His group members got more concerned. Something was off. He excused himself and disappeared into the bathroom. Alone, the mirror reflected more than just his face. He stood there, fingers pressed to the counter, breathing sharp, watching himself flicker. His posture shifted subtly, expressions changing like light passing through a prism. For a moment, he caught the glint of silver in his own eyes, Skerox, then it was gone. The warmth of Yeon's own brown eyes stared back at him, human and uncertain. What's happening to me?" he whispered. His voice quivered. Skerox usually held it steady, commanding. But now, Yeon heard himself, raw, vulnerable, human. And slowly, understanding began to seep in, the voice he thought was lost. The renewed level of confidence, the build, the skill, they weren't miracles. They were Skerox. And somewhere deep inside, part of him wanted to keep it, but part of him recoiled. When he returned to rehearsal, the others noticed. Some whispered about how he was acting softer, warmer. Some laughed it off, unsure. But inside him, the war continued. Skerox still lurked, powerful and perfect, yet Yeon's consciousness began to push back, emerging in glimpses. A laugh that was too human, a gesture too casual, a spark of vulnerability in his smile. When he came home that night, I noticed the difference immediately. The way he leaned in the doorway, scratching the back of his neck like he was shy. The smile, smaller and unsure. "Rough day?" I asked. He nodded, looking at me with eyes that held no silver at all. "I don't remember everything from this morning." But I remember thinking about you. It was disarming, sweet, almost dangerous, because at that moment I realized this wasn't Skerok speaking to me. If this was Skerok standing in this room, his presence would have been commanding, magnetic, untouchable. This was Jayon, the boy I might have fallen for even without an alien in him. But if Jayon could surface, that meant Skerok's could fade. And the thought of losing the man who had claimed me under starlight made my chest tighten. That night, Jayon was softer, more tender, uncertain, touching me like he needed me as much as I needed him. I wanted him too, but I stopped myself. Not because I didn't want to, but because the air felt fragile, like we were balancing on a thread stretched between two worlds. I wondered, what if the real Yeon doesn't like me? What if he doesn't like a black-skinned woman? I caught myself studying him, searching for signs. The curve of his smile, the softness in his voice. These were Yeon's, but every now and then, a flicker, the almost imperceptible glint of silver in his gaze, reminded me Skerok's was still there, watching, waiting. What I didn't know was that someone else had been watching too. Minji, a trainee under our label, had a talent for being invisible in the hallways and conveniently present when gossip was ripe. She'd been hovering near Rive Ivy's rehearsal rooms for weeks, smiling too sweetly, murmuring just enough to let rumors start, whispering with other girls about the black idol and the golden boy. Something's happening between them, she said, and the words traveled faster than any performance could. I'd ignored her. Until now. The next day, during my group's choreography drills, I felt her eyes on me. When the music cut, she walked past just slow enough to let her words land. Careful, Ani. Things that don't belong here don't last long. Her voice was syrupy sweet, but her gaze was sharp enough to cut. And she didn't mean me, not entirely. She meant us. By the time I got home, Yan was sprawled on the couch, eyes closed. But when he opened them, they weren't silver. They were brown, warm, vulnerable. I don't know what's happening to me, he confessed, voice almost trembling. It's like when I'm with you, I feel like me, not him. And when I'm not, he takes over again. I sat beside him, my fingers brushing his. Do you want him to? His eyes searched mine, desperate. I don't know. He gave me my voice back. He saved my career, but what if staying human means losing all of that? Before I could answer, he leaned in, not with Skerok's alien precision, but with Jaeon's imperfect urgency. The kiss was different, softer, hungrier, human. Somewhere deep inside, I felt it, the scales tipping. And I didn't know if I wanted them to. The line between alien and human had begun to blur, and with it, our world tilted. For me, for him, for Skerok's, everything I thought I knew about love, about desire, and about control was starting to fracture. And as I drifted to sleep that night, I felt it in my chest. Something was coming, something big. And I was right in the middle of it.